Thank you very much, Bobby, and thank you guys, everybody, for coming today. And want to move on to our next thought leadership panel and discuss a little bit about the value of industry alliances. Why are we here? Why is UBBA in existence? And we've invited many of the founding members and participants of the organization up here to talk about where that evolution came from. So I'm Matt Olson, Vice President at Burns & McDonnell for our telecommunications practice. And joining me on the stage today, sitting right next to me, is John Hughes, which I'd say has been a great friend in the industry and cohort in crime on UBBA and many things. John and I talk regularly about what's going on in the industry. And if you haven't heard, which I don't know how you couldn't have heard at this point, he's going to speak very freely because he only has a few more months in the industry. So he is speaking it like it is. And we want to wish John a great retirement. And hopefully he'll grace us with our presence in the future. Next up is Jerry Gentry. Jerry is a 30-year veteran of IT, having worked at startups, Fortune 50 companies, and currently leading architecture and engineering at NYPA, with a keen interest in installing agile technological workflows to improve our traditional work. Next up, we have Mar Torres. Mar is a 25-year wireless communications veteran and still a freshman in the utility industry. Although she's learning quickly, she's been helping a lot with Plugfest and learning a lot. In a role as VP of Products at Anterix, she is focused on delivering solutions to accelerate customer outcomes and value from the private LTE investment and ecosystem. Next, we have Tim Godfrey, an industry veteran who I have known and collaborated with for years, and I ask all of my really hard technical questions that I don't know how to answer. And as a technical manager at EPRI, being a great partner of the industry in how do we do the fundamental research, how do we move things along in the industry this year, next year, and into the future. And then finally, we have Ghoshal, a 30-year veteran of the power industry, and Koustuv is VP currently at Ericsson Utilities and Industrial Verticals, his primary focus being mission-critical private wireless networks. So let's welcome our panel here this morning. Thank you, guys. Be thinking about questions in the audience, although we have a long list and a short time to work through them here this morning. But if you have a question here in about 10 minutes, we'll have an opportunity to call on you. So first I wanted to find out, Jerry, if you could talk about what is the value that UBBA and alliances generally bring to the industry, and why did you guys join, and why are you here today?
Well, but welcome back, right? NYPA is a small company. It's a mid-sized company, only 2,000 people. About a little more than half of those are field workers. So, our administrative size is kind of small. The value of UBBA and also working with other utilities is that the knowledge sharing, both from vendors who own the equipment, tell us, the technical details around it that we don't have internally, but also partnering with John and Ameren over the last couple of years has been very eye-opening to us because they're ahead of us in some areas. We're ahead of them in a couple of areas. Sharing that information has solidified our approach to how we're going to be implementing LTE. And we discovered some things early on because of the sharing so that we didn't make some mistakes. And we're sharing what we're learning with other utilities too. So I think there's a real great value in terms of leveraging that knowledge, and we're going to continue to do that. I think UBBA, I mentioned the thing about the carrier before. I think UBBA is that point where we can start consolidating and start driving standards and consistent ways of doing things in this space. And I think it's really important.
Yep. Thanks, Jerry. Anybody else want to weigh in on this question? Or?
Top that answer. So I like your comment about the collaboration. We do that really well, and not just in the communication space. That's where we've been talking, but across the industry. So, we participate in a utility-only meeting once a month. No one sponsors it. We just get together and we collaborate, talk about ideas, hash these kinds of things out. In my career, which Matt alluded to, I've had the opportunity to screw up a lot of parts of the organization. data centers, mailroom, bill printing, the first storage area networks. I remember doing that. And people thought, holy cow, we're going to put mainframe and open systems on the same disk platform. It was unheard of. But we're kind of going through a lot of that today. But the most rewarding part of my career easily is the opportunity to work with others in the industry. And that started in 2012 when I took over the network team. I met Tim at EPRI. So you talk about these alliance groups, and UBBA is just typifying that, right? That's us talking about us owning our own future. But the opportunity to work with people like Tim typifies this industry. He's extremely smart, very humble, very gracious. Inclusion is what those alliances are all about, right? No one's really bringing any dumb thoughts to it. I took advantage of all those. You don't have to worry about that. So it's an open space for us to collaborate, safely talk about what we need to do, get ideas and help drive it. But at the end, if we act like not a mid-sized company, not like Ameren, Omar at San Diego, but if we act like we're one, all of a sudden, all of our business partners will do anything they can to help us deliver a solution because we have a force, we have an economy of scale. And I think that's what the biggest value of that is. Did that open up any thoughts for you guys?
Absolutely, John. I mean, you and I have talked about this. I talk about the fact that it will take a village to raise a private network, you know, metaphorically speaking and otherwise. I mean, I look at our little working group, the business strategy working group, and we got together yesterday. That's exactly, John, what you're talking about. Tim, you and I were in the same room. It was it was truly a village. There were utilities, there were technologists, there were researchers, there were people dabbling on the policy side of things. There was only one purpose in that room: to evangelize, to educate, to evaluate, and execute for utilities. Only one purpose.
Yeah, the thing that I see in being on the use cases working group is everybody's talking at the same time about what is the need. You know, I'm experiencing this need. What are you considering? At the same time, we're talking about the solutions. So it's not, I have a need, and then I'm going to the market and trying to find the solution. We have a need, we're talking about it, we're talking about possible solutions, and we're iterating on that continuously. And I think that's the real power of getting together and having this collaborative discussion outside of a procurement cycle, outside of a specific need today where I got to buy something this afternoon. We can have that discussion, we can move the industry forward. So next question I had, this is for John. So you, Mar, we've been here since the very beginning. UBBA took a lot of phone calls, a lot of discussions over many years, and COVID didn't help anything out during the middle of timing of any of this. But we're here today. We have a wonderful, successful organization with tons of input, tons of participants. Can you talk about what are some of the things that in the early days in 2019 at Distributech, when we all got some pens and put up some little signs and said, hey, we're starting something new here, what was driving that? And what have you seen the organization grow, and why are we building a new organization when there's already so much going on in the association ecosystem and with all of the partners that are already out there?
Oh gosh, you're gonna tax my memory. So we just a couple of things. Some of these were born out of already established relationships, UTC, or Nokia advisory sessions. Listen, you know, Koustuv and Nokia, AT&T, we've been in advisor groups for you all. You've been partners, genuine partners. You guys are stepping up and leading some of that innovation in different ways. So this is where people, cats and dogs, come to play in the same yard. And you talked about it last night. We all know each other, so we're competitive when you leave, but right now we're working together. It benefits everybody. But the challenge is we have EPRI, which is I'm a huge fan of EPRI. They do research, we invest in them. We need to take advantage of them. They tie information technology and ultimately the network back into business processes. You know, I work with Jim and his team from Ameren And we started at EPRI, we talk about what's the future and how do we apply that. We go to UTC and we see a lot of drive and partnership with vendors, but it seemed to be fragmented and missing some focus specifically on utility broadband. And so Matt and I and others talked about, why don't we centralize a focus on what we need to build out the communications, because it's a foundational capability. You heard Mark talking about the value of it and Bhavani, how it drives innovation. And so in those early days, we sat down and said, well, what does this little triangle or sphere of alliances look like? And we said, well, we need the research of EPRI. We need the partnership of UTC. They have a broader breadth. We need EEI because that's our Washington insight. They do the lobbying for us. But we need this focus group of how technology, specifically telecom, will be applied in the industry. And so that started the conversation, and it did start probably before that, Matt, we were working on that. But then Ollie became a big player, Carlos and Omar, Caleb. You know, we had a conversation in Dallas and Bobby was there. We brought her because we were trying to form UBBA and everybody was concerned that UBBA was really going to be a marketing arm for folks and not genuinely interested in this collaboration. And it was very hard to convince people otherwise. And so Ollie and I spent a lot of time, and with Carlos and Caleb, drafting out through the holiday season what this should look like. We invested a lot of time that, you know, wasn't core to our business, but still to this. And I think that led to the foundations. But, you know, it's people like Matt, Mar, Paul, that board, they did a lot to bring this together, and they genuinely want to make it about utilities. We're not going to make it about marketing, right? Cats and dogs are playing the same yard. We're not selling stuff here. We're learning. We're helping each other move forward in what we need. How's that? Did that answer the question?
That did a wonderful job.
I got a BS degree. I think you guys can tell.
Thank you, John. So absolutely, Anterix has been a founding member, very committed from the very beginning about bringing this capability to the industry. And we knew that the only way of moving the industry forward was through partnership and collaboration. So for us, it was very important to participate and be, you know, fully committed into a forum where utilities could come and speak freely about their needs, right? But because, you know, there are a lot of wireless veterans here, right? But wireless has been mostly focused on consumer side, and a lot of us now are being recycled and into, you know, the utility and critical infrastructure. So there is a lot of things for us to learn, and creating that forum was really, really important for us. On the flip side, right, this technology is also new to the utilities. They are very smart about, you know, narrowband technologies, proprietary technologies that the smart grid vendors had to put together because there was no other choice. So I think we had to create this forum where to have this symbiotic relationship where each of us learn from each other because we bring very different expertise and vantage points, and together, right, we move the industry forward. So, and I think we have done a very good job at creating that. There has been like almost going to be 3 years since we started, but I think we have accomplished immensely, right? Who would have imagined back in February 19 that we were, you know, in a small room, that today, 3 years from now, we would have a Plugfest where we would have, you know, how many vendors, more than 20, participating, working all together to really showcase what private LTE can do specifically for utilities. I think it's an amazing achievement for all of us.
Any other? Okay. Next question I'd have is, how do multiple industry partners work together to drive results? Tim, I'll call on you on this one. You're with EPRI, you're here at a UBBA event. Doesn't always come to first of mind of, you know, how are all of the industry partners working together, and how do utilities, you know, really benefit from the research and participate in the research that EPRI is doing?
Thanks. Yeah, EPRI is proud and honored to be a part of this organization, and we strive to collaborate with many others in the area of telecommunications. And I lead our telecommunications research, which is a one program out of almost 100 different programs that EPRI is involved in and doing research, mostly on power systems and generation aspects, but our area in information communication and cybersecurity is growing as this becomes the centerpiece of many of the grid modernization and decarbonization plans. You know, our research is research, but it's collaborative in nature. So it's not necessarily one-on-one, but we work on a set of problems and challenges and questions that are brought to us by our advisors. And those are changing all the time, but we have a focus. Clearly, private LTE and broadband connectivity is a large area of focus, but we also work on strategic fiber. We've done a lot of work on the 6 gigahertz interference challenges that have come up in the last couple of years. And we continue to have an annual portfolio of a variety of different research that we make available. This information is provided in various formats, from different types of reports, presentations, webcasts. And one thing that's been a high value is that sharing of knowledge, the collaboration that we've talked about. Until the pandemic, we would have several meetings a year where we get together and have deep technical discussions on all these topics. And through our work, I think it really helps everyone in the industry, from utilities, to be aware of what others are doing, what are the best practices. The case studies that we do are of a lot of value. Yesterday in the business strategy session, one of the topics that came up that many executives will ask if you have a project or a plan of a large scale investment, they'll ask, well, what are others doing in industry? And that is a lot of the information that we provide, is what everyone else is doing. And we appreciate the opportunity to have that free flow of sharing of knowledge through everyone, through our collaborative research model.
Anybody else? I'll say, when a really hard technical problem comes to mind, and maybe the latest one being 6 gigahertz interference, we're going to go to the FCC, we're going to go different places as utilities, as consultants, as the industry, and we're going to talk to them. But we need to talk to them accurately, technically, about what's going on. And I'm always looking for and relying on Tim's advice, the testing, the reports, to provide that evidence, the backup, not just the thoughts and the opinions. We all kind of know and fear what the outcome of that's going to be. But no, let's back it up with research and data. And multiple people are working on that in the industry. But if you ever have a technical need, I would say, reach out to EPRI first. They probably have some work already done on that, and would save you some time and get you up to speed faster in that space. Next question. This is for Koustuv. How do you think collaboration amongst the ecosystem partners can help in demystifying the evolving cellular standards? Maybe we'll specifically pick on the 5G and versus 4G and how all that picks together. And how can we accelerate the deployment of private networks by being here together and participating?
Yeah, great question. This demystification is becoming more and more important, right? As I think, Mar, you touched on, Bhavani touched on earlier today, cellular technology is not new. This is proven. LTE is a proven toy, right? So there shouldn't be much mystery behind it. So how do you humanize the problem statement? I think, Omar, you alluded to earlier, it's just that bringing it down to what can it do for the utility? What does it do for me? Fallen conductor. Okay, can it solve this problem? So we need to think through, yes, technology obviously is important. Technology standards will continue to evolve, but it's an interlock between technology standards and what is the problem statement that technology is supposed to be solving, right? And as collaborators within this industry, and Plugfest is a fantastic example where we have all technology companies working together toward that common goal, right? And so it's that vernacular, it's the commonality of the vernacular that the industry needs to, that it needs to evolve into that common vernacular so that everybody, doesn't matter whoever is, whether it's an integrator or a technologist or a researcher in the room, we just start talking the same language so that it's not as if from a utility standpoint, it doesn't appear as if I'm speaking a different language than you are or you are. it's the common goal that we're driving toward. John, you heard it.
Yeah, I can't stand sitting quiet. So I'm thinking as you're talking, in the role of UBBA, like any group, we have a lot of partners here today. And we have more utilities. We started the year when we incorporated with 8 members. We're over 54 members now, just in 1 year, right? So it's important. That's what I'm telling you. But use UBBA to answer those questions. If you don't understand standards, there's no stupid question. Come to UBBA, get engaged. To our partners, you're working with customers. If they're not a part of UBBA, encourage them to join. Explain to them why you're invested in it and why they should be. That's going to just bring us together on demystifying. And I really think we need to look at that nationwide type utility grid, right? And who can better partner with us than the carriers who do that, right? We're not a threat to their business. We're a complement, and their knowledge would be huge, and that's why they're a part of this. So my ask would be, if you're a business partner out there, bring your customers to UBBA, get them engaged, and I think that will accelerate our learning.
I get asked all the time really technical questions about how does LTE work and 5G versus 4G and all this. To me, what UBBA is about is getting to experience it and feel it for yourself so that you are confident in what you're looking to do, so that you're comfortable with the technology. The amazing thing about Plugfest next door is there's no situation that I know of where in the industry we've had 4 RAN vendors, 20 UE vendors, multiple different use cases and applications, all going to be tested in 2 days. You're going to be able to see it, feel it, walk up and touch the people, or walk up and touch the equipment, see the people. Don't touch the people. It's COVID times, not allowed. But be able to engage with the organization. When you leave here, I expect 2 things: that you're going to understand the technology better and have a better expectation and understanding of where the industry is going. And what it's going to feel like when you want to deploy an application. It's how do we get wireless communication to not be the thing when the industry, when somebody at a utility says, I have a problem, I have that use case, I'm going to deploy it. We think about a few use cases now. The really important ones we've talked about haven't happened yet. Some of them, if somebody's going to come along and walk into John's office and say, man, and I've got a few scenarios of this. Yeah, okay. Better happen quick in John's case. But in one example, I can mention, there was a hurricane coming, it was about to hit a utility. And 2 days before that, they said, hey, we have a concern about flooding. We have to do something about this. And because they had the communication network, there was all kinds of complex discussions about, do we install this sensor and this interlock into SCADA? And really the point was, how do we not damage the equipment, but operate it right up to that point, but safely without people being there? And the simple answer was, well, why don't we put an LTE camera there at the site and just watch it on video? And when the water gets up to level, we'll just turn the stuff off. You're like, well, that's a pretty ingenious solution. We can do that in like 2 days. Guess what? If we wouldn't have had that LTE network, if they would have gone into John's office and said, hey, John, can you engineer us a broadband wireless communication network and deliver it in 2 days? What would the answer have been? I think I got set up on that one. Yeah, no, I mean, it's not going to be possible. And it's those kind of things that it just fundamentally feels different when you have communication and information processing capabilities. You can go about solving your problems. And it's really that vision that we're talking about solving here. And I don't think you can really embrace that vision until you felt it for yourself. And so this conference, this organization is all about making that stuff happen better, faster for you without having to fly to 15 different locations in the country to see the equivalent deployment. Another question for Mar. Back in May, Anterix announced the launch of the active ecosystem with 37 technology companies for 900 megahertz. Can you elaborate on what impact that's had in the industry and how that's driving the industry forward?
Sure. So let me first tell you a little bit about the progress that we have done with that. Anterix is really humbled about the wide industry acceptance of this program. We started with 37. As of now, we already have 63 technology companies being members of that. We have grown the what we call the Anterix active category to 12. That means that now there are either chipsets, devices, or radios that are fully certified by the FCC. So now they are fully production ready and commercial ready to be deployed in the private LTE networks. And we have others in the pipeline. And also we have what we call Anterix capable, which these are solutions that already work in the 900 private LTE, but they are not yet certified. So the focus of the program is really to help facilitate and accelerate the availability of solutions that are commercial ready for 900 private LTE. So one of the things that we have seen is that there are a lot of smart grid vendors that they now need to adapt their roadmaps to include private LTE as part of their communications options. So this is a place where they can come, they can understand what is the process that they need to follow to get all these solutions certified by the FCC. They can come and talk to the other members of the ecosystem so they know that some of the elements that they need to put into their equipment, whether they are chipsets, modules, etc., they learn which ones are certified, they learn about what is the roadmaps for all of these elements that are important in the ecosystem. So also we've seen utilities pricing kind of these initiative because they have seen that there is a place where the hard work of the development and the creation is done, right? They can get to their vendors and say, hey, we need your use case on 900 private LTE, go to the Anterix active ecosystem and get going on your roadmap of adopting that technology. And I think it's very complementary to the efforts of ABBA, right? At ABBA, we come here, I think ABBA, complementing what you were saying, we are closing kind of a cycle here. Started as a learning and initiative. People came to learn about the possibilities, etc. The vendors understood the use cases, and then we needed a place to accelerate how all of that could be commercialized and ready to check, so this could be deployed. So this is what we have done with the Anterix active ecosystem. What I think is the best of all is that now, right, we are coming back to ABBA to showcase all of what has been, all that progress that has been done on the development side and on the innovation side. So we are delighted to be part of here, to contribute, to bring more and more solutions, innovation to utilities, right? But we are going to be the hard work, behind the scenes. So there's a lot of effort that has been gone, Plugfest and a lot of the members, but everybody knows that in the development cycle, there are a lot of when you have to do integration, it's very hard, right? I think Mark and Bhavani pointed that out, right? When you have to integrate the IT and OT side, there are a lot of things that you need to sort out, right? That is what we are doing as part of the ecosystem through that. And one of the things is that I see, right? I also serve in the board of ABBA. I see the Anterix active ecosystem as an avenue to grow ABBA membership. We are encouraging all of our Anterix active ecosystem members to be part of ABBA. Here is where the collaboration and the communication with utilities is happening, and they need to have that experience, for themselves and by themselves, and also when they have achieved development, right? They are the ones showcasing that to the community.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I mean, it's Plugfest. It's here. It's today. All of this stuff got tested, integrated, and ultimately worked on. And argue it is because of this event today that it is done today. You don't have to now go check out, does this voltage circuit indicator with this streetlight controller work on 900 megahertz, because you've seen it, and the vendors who are supplying the equipment are comfortable. Over here in Plugfest, all night long, there's been testing of 900 megahertz devices. We have the core stuff that we're showing you. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we would have loved to show. We're a little short on time. We'll do Plugfest many different times, but they're already working on the next devices for the next Plugfest. A lot of under the glass meter manufacturers are testing back there. We had success with Landis and Gear on multiple different providers making that work. And it's because everybody's here in this space that we're able to move that along faster than we would have done otherwise. They're able to hit 3 different cores all in one room, all within a few hours. Now, if we could only agree on who gets 900 megahertz in the room at a time, that's the challenge of testing all in one room, all at one time. But you'll see our very sophisticated channel management system when we get over to Plugfest.
And I think the other thing is that we have the Plugfest, but also this has been a platform for each of the members to now showcase their own innovation. So you'll see that everybody is coming, not only playing with the test that we have, structure that everybody needs to do, but also everybody's coming with their own things that they are working on their labs, right, in collaboration with other members. So, for instance, we were talking about what, one of the use cases where LTE could be most useful is in emergency situations, right, restoration, etc. Right. Well, we'll be happy to showcase you a pole sensor, right? What better than after a hurricane or whatever, you can identify are the poles that have lost, right, their vertical angle, right, through a sensor, that existed before, right? But now through private LTE can be deployed very cost effectively, right, with kind of narrowband type of communication. So we love to hear what are your needs and struggles. So then we will make sure that we bring that solution back to you guys already, integrated with private LTE. So that's the goal of ABBA and also the Anterix Active Ecosystem.
Yeah, so I'd like to open it up to questions. Yes, can we get your mic? One second. Can we?
So if I understand, what level of certifications do you think ABBA should bring to the table? So the examples you cited were specific on a unique technology. ABBA is more encompassing. So would we push for, as an organization, certifications of multiple platforms? Yes, we want people to be certified, but we're not going to step into the 9i ecosystem, but we're going to make you aware of it. So at least in my view, I don't think ABBA is going to drive the certification process. I do think our technology teams will talk about what does it take, where do you go? We want to point people in the right direction. Now, if you feel differently, board, speak up, and I think that's where we're at.
I fully agree. Also, I want to acknowledge, John has said it, but Omar said it before, right? Utilities are looking at a multi-band strategy, so ABBA cannot just be kind of 900. I think it would be much more efficient for all of us, right? That ABBA focuses on the guidelines, on the operational drivers, on the, helping make the case, business model, where we need, well, all these architectures need to evolve, right? And then let's get the technologies work on solutions around that, and then let's bring back all of these solutions back to the forum to validate, change, evolve, etc. So I would invite you to join to drive some of these standardization efforts, right?
Yeah, there's a
Jerry,
working group on
Jerry has mentioned,
cases
yeah,
and
exactly.
test beds. And to add a little bit to that conversation, this has been a very active conversation. I think a distinction that needs to be mentioned is the technology that we're using is LTE. And in many of those cases, when a lab certifies them, they're certifying the base technology, and where we're working more on what the use case is and work on it. So I don't think you're going to see a certified, this device is compliant, because what would it be compliant with? It's a concept. What you are going to see out of this is we're recording, the video and the audio, but we're also recording the test cases. I think you're going to see a list of UBBA tested use cases. So we know these use cases work in this ecosystem. And you're also going to see specific vendor pairs that we said, yes, using this technology, we know that a X, Y, and Z with this chipset in it is talking to this RAN provider and this core. and you can rely on that information. So probably not a certified, but maybe a, tested in the UBBA ecosystem documentation that you can use, if that makes sense. So,
And
but
if I
that
may,
is an active point of discussion, but that's kind of where the group is talked about landing.
and if I may add, I would like to add to that. Once these use cases are going to be implemented in this private LTE, there's going to be a lot of optimization. And I see ABA being the place where the best practices, where blueprints around how to configure a network for different use cases playing all at the same time, right? I see ABA being the custodian of all that information, and being able to be shared for across the utilities. So all of them don't have to go through the growing pains on how to optimize this technology when they use it.
For example, one of the cases has been, how do you deploy a secure LTE network? So there's a lot of security functionality built into it, but how carriers go about deploying their networks, they have kind of fundamentally different use cases where their interest in what's going on inside of the data flow is a little bit different than what utilities are. And so how do you make sure that a SIM card isn't removed from one pole and used in their ways, techniques? Southern Company has deployed some technology they're sharing with Omar at Semper. We're trying to bring all of that together and put that out into the public, so it's not a one-on-one, it's a many-to-one conversation. So. Any more questions from the audience?
So I
Anybody but
apologize, this
Steve.
question's been asked, but Steve Lowe here, and I think my kind of piggytailing on what your question was, in a previous role I played with a previous employer, we tried to bring LTE to the meter. And in doing that, we had to set certain commitments we had with ecosystem partners in order to get them to stand up a production line to be able to support that. So in this alliance, what is the strategy to try to aggregate the buying power of the utilities to justify the build out of ecosystem partners? And I think this kind of goes, Mike, in line with more than just 900 to CBRS and other spectrums that are available. Is there a plan of action for you to come together and make commitments? And normally, alliances are very powerful and persuasive, but ultimately money makes decisions. Is there an alliance that would go together and say that we're willing to commit to a volume of products to ensure that we're able to get ecosystem partners to start to manufacture in volume that then drives the cost to make it economical sense for you to deploy it?
Yeah, great. Put me on the spot. Thanks, Steve.
I'm glad John delegated that for me.
No, I think it is a very cogent question. The elephant's in the room, but no one wants to recognize that the elephant's in the room. And volume will drive some of those scale questions, the pricing questions. Can UBBA be such a forum that can bring and unify so many technology providers in this soiree, if you will? And yes, the answer can be yes. May not be down to the point of like an UBBA certified or an FCC certification per se, but something short of certification. If this body, if you will, can help drive some of those quote unquote standards, it will help drive some of the answers to what Steve is alluding to.
Yeah, so one, we're very immature at this point as UBBA. And so what you're asking for is an alliance that can forecast enough demand to drive the change. But I think what we're really doing is demonstrating capabilities, bringing utility needs and the partner ecosystem together to even demonstrate what we can do.
Correct.
So for example, LNG's here. They're stepping up, they're here, they're demonstrating it, others are here. They're making those changes. Ron at ABB, I think I've been talking to him. They're going back to their chip manufacturer. They're integrating to include private LTE into their ecosystem. So that's the first thing we want to do is get that. I'm not going to forecast numbers. I don't think this alliance is that. Our members are all going to be buying products. If we're successful, we're going to be doing it the same. And so you should be able to talk to any one of our alliance members from a utility side and anticipate what their growth pattern looks like and know what's going to be best for their business. So Steve, I don't think you're going to see a marketing component, and I could be wrong. We may mature differently. But right now, it's about exposing the art of the capability. So, innovation isn't creating something new. It's taking something from a well-established other industry and applying it in our industry and seeing the benefit of that. And that's what we're focused on right now. So hopefully we'll mature into that organization. But I want to compliment you on asking a very tough question. I like that one better than the first one you ever asked me.
Well, I'll just take one step further to that. I think you used the word innovation and evolution, right? I think this body can help in sort of paving some of that blueprint. I think there was a question asked earlier, why aren't we discussing 5G where we continue to discuss LTE? And the answer was brilliant. It's what utilities can deploy today, what capabilities, because the time continuum is a little different for a utility than it may be for a carrier, right? I mean, my friend Alan, I mean, he's been there a few years, for a few years now. That evolution, for example, or not so much predicting, but at least talking about, hey, this LTE will eventually evolve to a 5G, 10G, 20G, whatever G it may be. But what is that roadmap? That will help the ecosystem partners to do that predictive modeling from their product lifecycle management perspective. That is going to be key. And I think UBBA certainly is in a position to help pave that path. My point.
Just remember, we're not carriers. Our needs are different. 5G isn't our burning platform. There's benefit, right? You're beginning to see why our board meetings go so long, because Mara and I get a hold of the mics and it lasted.
Yeah, 5G, the interesting thing about it is 5G is a super simplification of what's going on in the industry. It's how did we get it down to 2 characters? I would argue ostensibly for market differentiation and is definitely driven in the commercial carrier space. But when you expand that out and you look, what is that? It's virtualization, it's radio technology, it's UE advancements. We're going to step through that process in a multi-step process when it makes sense in parts of that ecosystem. I think everybody who's looking at deploying LTE today is leveraging aspects of virtualization that are really driven out of 5G, but are still having an impact in 4G. But the question then becomes, chipsets, cost of chipsets, volumes, needs of those chipsets, those aren't the same. And so there's not necessarily the march to do this all homogeneously, but don't forget the marketing fact. And, sometimes I'll point out narrowband IoT standard is in the revision, which is technically 5G, but not sure that's where everybody thinks 5G is going, but there's a lot more in 5G than just ultra wideband as fast as we can go communications. Quick time check. One more question. I'm told we have 10 more minutes. I've got 4 more questions and a very talkative panel, but that's one more question. I'd rather field a question than to continue to ask all my questions. We'll be thinking about those. We'll move the conversation on specifically. Another canned question here for John. How does Ameren specifically, your network engineering team, utilize industry alliances and trade organizations in your deployment today?
Yeah, good. I think a good question. I appreciate you asking that. So first off, I have to acknowledge, not just our business partners, but our network engineering team, Brian Hartman. When we started this, he helped build all the justifications. Cole Cruz has been on our team pushing private LT for a long time. You all know Cole. He was, I thought that was the only letters he knew was private LT. And my whole team back there. So I don't want to go through all the names, but I love them greatly. They're why we're doing this. And they started by getting engaged with EPRI. I think if you're going to be part of an organization, I think we look at others like Salt River, First Energy, and Southern Company, and their level of engagement and the value they got out of it. Challenge that team. We need to be involved. We can't just sit there in the room and nod our head, right? Let's do something. Let's make a few mistakes. And they bought into that. So we've been involved in DER architecture, Tim Spires, if you know him, and in the private LTE. We got engaged with 6 Gig in the testing. We were doing some Monday with Tim. And so when you look at this, one, step up and be a part of it or get out. Get engaged. This industry, we don't care how stupid your question is. I'd have been kicked out a long time ago. But that's how you learn. That's how you get other people engaged, and it drives value. It's really, really pretty good. So get engaged and then think about how are you going to apply it. So it's great to have a vision, right? Cole's talking about private LTEs. He's dragging Bob Short up to tell me what PDV does. And you know, it's from that vision you start to work out with the trade groups. What's the reality of this, right? We can bring down a Plugfest, or we can do the research at EPRI and show it in a lab. We'll bring it into your facilities. So the next step is take a chance on yourself, build something. So learning, how do I apply it? How am I going to apply that? How is my business benefit from this? That's how we approach it. And then from there, you can build the project and move forward. So going from vision to delivery, I think, has been the exciting journey that we've been on. We've done it several times together, and I greatly appreciate the team and their effort. But I think we got a lot of that by being engaged in EPRI, UTC, and now UBBA. You guys want to answer that more elegantly?
Yeah, the tech transfer is a big part of what we do at EPRI. We don't want to just write reports and have nobody ever look at them. That would be a waste for everybody. So we do research. We are always looking for ways that it can be applied by utilities to change the way business is done and to move the telecommunications and the grid overall into the future of grid modernization and meeting the goals that have been set for the industry in terms of deep decarbonization, and also while doing that, also improving reliability and resilience. It's a big challenge. Telecommunications plays a central role, and our goal around tech transfer is to provide information, but also specific testing. We love to take on testing challenges, understanding situations that may be unique to yours, but could benefit the industry as a whole. That's where the collaborative model comes in. The testing that we've done on 6 gigahertz with Ameren and Southern Company has been valuable to the whole industry. It's been widely disseminated and used. And similar testing that we've done around private LTE and other things that have a similar model. And I think there's much more to be done where our EPRI testing and tech transfer can serve and move us all forward as an industry as private LTE becomes more broadly adopted. And one area that I've talked to a few people here is the possibilities around shared networks in overlapping service territories. And now we see Evergy and Ameren coming together with possibilities of interlocking and overlapping service territory across the state of Missouri. And there's many other areas in the country, certainly in New York. You've got a lot of neighbors that would be interested. So we'd love to help coordinate and collaborate on opportunities for that type of sharing.
Yeah, Jerry, do you have anything to add?
Well, we within the state of New York, we have, I think, 40 other small utilities, micro utilities that are out there, and we are chartered to also help them where we can. So we're doing a lot of testing right now. We've shared our testing results, what we discovered so far with the rest of UBBA, and we're looking at how we can leverage some of that knowledge to help some of the smaller utilities who can't afford to do, some of the work we do. So it's a kind of a community effort, and I'd say it's really about interoperability more than it is about, getting a marketing kind of a thing going. So the early days in telecommunications, there was an interop show that used to be, and it started in San Francisco, sponsored by Cisco. And to be in the show, you had to do what you're doing here. You had to interoperate with 2 other vendors. And you'd walk on the floor, talk to the engineers, and they would start making design changes based on your feedback. And so you have the opportunity here to influence where the products are going, how they're being developed, and what they're going to prioritize in their production for the near future. So take advantage of it.
Absolutely. And, and Ed, we've talked a lot about the technical aspects of what UBBA is doing, but it's not just technical. Active with NARUC, looking at the regulatory policy, getting state regulators used to the concept and what does it look like. So as projects go forward, they have a frame of reference and it's not having to solve the same problem in 50 states uniquely. Gridwise Alliance, very, very active in Washington, D.C., also, engaged with how do the things that this technology enable impact the grid, and how do we ultimately get regulatory policy with the FCC or on Capitol Hill that align with those interests. And I think you're going to see a lot of that in this infrastructure bill that is going somewhere. We can all weigh in on the politics of when and where and what it's going to end up looking like at the end of the day. But there's clearly Washington seeing a need, and the utility industry is part of that. So with that, I think we will wrap up our panel discussion today. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, every one of you, for your contributions and humoring my last minute emails and working links and all that to get this coordinated. But great job. Can we give these guys a great round of applause?